Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
So here we go. We rolling. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And today I have a guest that is one of the OGs, a big homie in a lot of different things. So OG and big homie are, I guess, in the African tradition and other traditions being said, an elder. But right now, even when it comes to it, always fly. And when I talk about fly, meaning like the style, the approach to certain things, and also just in community when it comes to so many things of what's African-centered, Pan-African movements, when it comes to justice, and also when it comes to one of the good friends of one of my rest in peace big homies, Chokwe Lumumba, Attorney Jeffrey Edison. How are you, my brother?
I'm doing great, Brother Kyrie, and thank you for that, and lifting up the spirit of Brother Chokwe. I certainly respect and honor that, particularly today, being February 21st, the day of Brother Malcolm's assassination, and who was the inspiration for who Brother Chokwe became. And so putting those two together, I'm certainly honored in this moment, and as your generation say, to be in this space at this point in time.
Oh man, well, it's already definitely lifting that up. And when we think of that lineage of big homies, his big homie,
Right.
and Milton Henry, and Ken Coleman put up something on George Crockett the other day, and I'm like, that was the big homie of my big homie's big homie, you know what I'm saying? So
That's
like
right.
all of the things kind of intermingle.
That's right.
When we think about justice and walking this path of using intelligence,
Right.
strategy, and planning as ways to bring about empowerment, justice, and freedom to our people.
And with you just saying that, you bringing these spirits into this moment, Brother Milton Henry, Brother Gaidi, he certainly was a true freedom fighter and soldier for justice in the not only in the general movement for liberation of African people, but very personal to me in terms of the legal arena. He was definitely one of the outstanding legal warriors.
Oh yeah.
For African people here in America, and more specifically in the Detroit metropolitan area. He lit them up.
Oh, I mean, it's a reason why he was Malcolm X's attorney. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
It's a
That's
reason.
Right. That's right. That's right.
So with it, we always start these Detroit stories on Detroit is Different with your Detroit story and your people. And I've known you for a long time. You know me since
Yes,
I was
sir.
I was
that.
little dude. Yes. So with this, I don't know this. You and your people making their way here. Jafani gave her story, and that's Jafani's story. But what led your people to come to Detroit, and how many generations deep?
Well, my parents, both my mother and father, were born and raised in Kentucky.
Whereabouts?
My mother was from a county called Adair County, in sort of like the mid west southern part of Kentucky, and my father was from a place called Ohio County in Beaver Dam, Kentucky, the town that my mother, in and around the area of Columbia, Kentucky, in Adair County. My father was in Beaver Dam in Ohio County. And so they did not know one another as they grew up. My father was in the army and stationed out in the Pacific arena, and was a staff sergeant, and was a map drawer or drawer of maps. I'm not sure if that's but that's what he did. He drew maps, geographic maps, of the terrain and the area for the military during World War II. My mother, she graduated from high school when she was 16, and her and a friend of hers, and this was during wartime, during World War II, they went to work in some special program at Fort Knox in Kentucky, and so they were on the base, and at some point, these European soldiers saw them walking around and chased them. And my mother and her friend were able to escape and hide out in some building or whatever. And she was not living with her father, who was in Detroit. And when that happened, he came and brought her to Detroit. And so that's how my mother escaped the throes of the southern racist environment at the time. My father, after the war, returned, and he was athletic and was a coach in. I'm not sure if it at specifically in this reference in basketball or football, but he played, basketball, football, baseball, like so many of brothers did at the time and still do. But he had applied after the war for a coaching position, and I don't recall which state it was in, but he had applied to coach one of the colleges, and last name being Edison, I suppose they did not necessarily
think it was a brother.
It was a brother.
Yeah.
So when he showed up he was accepted or hired. But when he showed up, there, it's like, no, we ain't gonna have no African coaching us, and so he lost that, and he eventually made his way to Detroit. And then as our communities were, networking and friends from, that were migrating up, were socializing together, there was a mutual friend that introduced them together. And I think was asked my mother if she wanted to meet this dude, this coach, and that sort of thing, and the rest is history.
There you go.
So
now you come about.
Yeah.
So,
So I have an older brother, Ken, 3 years older than me. He's in California now, and I have a younger sister, 6 years older than me. Younger rather, and she's here in Detroit.
Okay.
And so we were born. Well, my brother and I were born in the Brewster Projects, but soon after I was born, maybe around between 1 and 2 years old, the family moved out to 8 Mile Road, and the area on Manor, and that has historically been referred to now, reference being made now as the wall that separated the Europeans from Africans in the 40s, but on 8 Mile. So wall between
Burwood Wall.
Between Mendota and Burwood, between Pembroke and 8 Mile. So that's the neighborhood, the 8 Mile area that I grew up in, and which laid a hell of a foundation for for many of the brothers and sisters in that area.
So you just gave so much more game into like a lot of the other questions I was going to naturally ask. I like it. So the other questions I have about your parents more so, and I can see that hookup. People saying like, okay, you got this brother, he's from Kentucky, you from Kentucky. You know, yeah, you available. Why don't you guys kind of meet? But that's the other thing that I also have a question about, even your grandfather. And I don't know if you ever met your grandfather, because with the migration lines, Kentucky, that's not usually one of the patterns where a lot of people, you know, from Kentucky make their way to Detroit. It happens. It definitely happens. I mean, you could keep riding the train up this way, but it's rare. What do you think was was it the jobs? Was it
It was certainly the job market that drove that. I don't know of any specific
story or anything,
racial conflict that other brothers and sisters experienced and had to flee the terror of that time. On my father's side, my grandfather Roy Edison and my grandmother Alpha Edison. First my father was Kenneth Edison and my mother Catherine. My father had one sister, Dolores. But my grandfather was in the coal mines. He was a coal miner. And in that Kentucky area was known for coal mining. And and so that was the work that he did, and my grandfather. And worked the coal mines for years. And many of the brothers who worked the coal mines eventually developed from the toxic nature of the work, developed what was called the black lung. And although it did manifest in him, it was not the cause of his death, you know. But my grandfather had not migrated this way, you know. My father's sister, Dolores, she raised a family in Louisville, Kentucky. And then on my mother's side, I did not know her father so much, but my grandmother, Lida Staten, or Lida Baker, she was sort of like the matriarch in that, one of the matriarchs in that area to my mother and her sister and two brothers in Columbia, and the extended community that where she lived. You know, she was like the woman in that area.
She,
you know,
she was the person that
wielded
knew
the power
where things would go, and knew how they would happen,
and didn't take no mess. You know.
All right. So in this, you mentioned that 8 Mile neighborhood is a neighborhood you remember growing up in and connecting. What was it like for you as a kid? What do you remember about that community growing up, being younger?
Well, you know, the 8 Mile geographic of the 8 Mile neighborhood basically was an area from a Manor or anything east of Myers to Livernois, between Pembroke and 8 Mile. And back then, there were like different anchors of the community. And one of the anchors in the community was the more recently was the Johnson Recreation Center, which was right next to Higginbotham School, elementary school. But at that time, it wasn't Johnson, it was just referred to as the center. And so coming up, that was like where everyone, you know, like from as early as like 9 or all the way through high school, people would go for recreational events. We learned baseball, basketball, football, roller skating. There was a swimming pool. And that was on Cherry Line and Chippewa.
So when you were younger, there were a lot of other young people in that same neighborhood
Oh,
too.
no question. And the families were just wonderful. It was a working class community, and it was like many kids on the block. I mean, it wasn't a thing where you were so concerned about where the kids are. In the summertime, you it's like, get out this house. You ain't staying in this house. So you might leave 10 o'clock in the morning and may not come back till 4, 5, or 6 in the evening. And you could go to each other's homes or go to the center, and the families looked out for each other. I mean, if it was the type of thing, if I was down the street and a parent saw me doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing, I would get checked. And so it was out of mutual respect for the families and the camaraderie in the families that was served as a foundation for a true communal type living. I mean, you go next door to get a cup of sugar, a spoon of sugar, if needed, or if you needed an egg or a cup of flour. You go to your neighbor and say, this, what you got, and you give it up.
So this community kind of sets a framework of understanding your ideals into community.
Yeah.
So as you grow, do you go to the schools in the neighborhood and
Yeah, that was another thing that was the anchor. You had you had the social center or recreational center. You had the school that was a anchor, and then you had churches that served as like anchors. So people in the neighborhood, it might be like 3 or 4 churches that served that particular community. It wasn't necessary, although I guess you would have people coming outside the community to the church, but the core of the congregation was like from that neighborhood. The core population of the school was from the neighborhood. Everybody walked to school. You weren't driven to school. You wasn't driven to school. Your parents, in fact, had gone to work. So you walked to school.
So I imagine that puts you in the Mumford neighborhood, definitely.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Of the Mustangs. What was Mumford like for you?
Mumford was like the beginning of my evolution of consciousness. I was at Mumford from 66 to 69.
So the rebellion happens
in 66.
while you're attending Mumford.
Right.
Well, that
Right.
summer. So basically, you have your 9th grade year.
My 10th. We started
So
at the
your
10th.
10th, yeah. So 67, yeah, because I guess that would have been
6. So then, you had junior high through the 9th grade, and then you started high school in the 10th
yeah,
grade.
good point. So
So that's how, back then, that's how it was. And so we were fortunate to have some teachers, African teachers. There was a couple of European teachers that was cool, but we had some very good African teachers. We had Ralph Carter. We had Mike Biagas. We had Mr. Branson. We had Miss Gregory. We had these teachers, and this was at a time when there's starting to be a focus on black studies, these teachers would bring in outside speakers, and so brother Mario Badelli at the time, Richard Henry, I can remember being one of the people who came in to speak. Exposed to like jazz musicians, and so there was this kind of uprising among the across the city of Detroit after the rebellion in '67 to challenge the institutions to be more responsive to the African students. So you had a growing organizing of black students. And this was at a time when there was like a transition in the population between majority Jewish population to a majority African population.
And I want to, a couple different things that I want to uplift, and a question that I got for you, or observation. One, this is interesting because these are like the layers of all the Detroiters' different stories and how they connect. So around this time, a little younger than you, I imagine, possibly, but similar, like real close, younger in the sense of high school age. But as you grow older, it's like, you know,
It's all the same.
But in high school age, a couple things are happening around this time that have been revealed through my Detroiters' different interviews of Dan Aldrich and also, rest in peace, Kwame Kenyatta. And Kwame Kenyatta's walkout at Cooley High for Black Studies Department that led to the organizing, as Dan Aldridge even echoes and gave more context to, that there were a lot of students like Kwame Kenyatta and others that were walking out on schools for not having Black Studies departments and not teaching Black history, where students were like to the point where if you're not talking Black history, we don't even want to be in this institution. So there were a lot of walkouts. There were a lot of lock-ins. It was a lot of student organizing from the high school level in a lot of these Detroit schools, which leads into later a lot of, you know, Wayne State's battles and other battles. But it was a temperature at the time in that pulse existing. Shout out Baba Malik Yakini also for speaking about Dr. Peters being in this space of teaching people and hipping people to some information, and Vaughn Bookstore being like a place that just got a historical marker, should have been got that, of some of this information flowing and being shared. Mami Imani Humphrey, rest in peace, from Aisha Shule, was one of the instructors that helped a lot of those students that did walk out get their GED. I give all of that context to say it's a premise, but also in that premise with these studies departments, it's interesting that you spoke to some Black male teachers being in the mix, and that's always been such a, you know, in teaching young Black men, Black male teachers existing in that relationship. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting you speak that up. So that's kind of where my question is, and the pulse is, did you recognize that some of this other stuff is going on all over the city? Or was it one of those things where it was just like, nah, we at Mumford and we want this?
No, it was, you know, after rebellion, this was a citywide movement amongst the youth. You know, so you had folks at Central, Northwestern, Mumford, and one of the issues ultimately, one of the things was not only the need to be more African-centered education in terms of these Black history and literature departments or curriculum, but at the time it was like empowering the students. It was a sense of how do you mobilize the students to be able to recognize their importance, their significance, and not just the imposition of a Eurocentric institution on us. And so one of the issues that instigated the walkout and shutdown of Mumford was over initially around locker assignments or something like that. And together with, in the back of it, a sense of taking control of what was happening with us within the school.
All right, now you just jumped the gun. You got to definitely give me the story of the Mumford walkout. I'm unaware of it, but definitely am interested in it. You're giving some context, but not dates as specific as much as who was involved, how were people involved, and what was your role in it?
Right.
How did you all get back to school? You know, what happened?
Yeah. So the specific challenge may have been initiated around this locker policy that the school had. But underneath that also was the need to expand African representation in terms of the faculty, in terms of the administration. There were no
Black administrators.
administrators, and so there was the walkout of the students. And I was part of it. Alvin Storrs was part of it. He's since transitioned. But a historic link that is important is that as we were as students organizing, there was a meeting with the student among the student leadership or folks, and we were it might have been at Alvin's home, at his parents, at his home, and there was a brother and sister from SNCC that came and talked with us about organizing and developing our strategy and how we should be interfacing with the school and that sort of thing. And that left an indelible impression on me. For those brothers, the brother and sister from SNCC to come down and talk with us. So at the time, I was in the 11th grade. This happened, I think, in and around the spring of '68. I was in the 11th grade. And so out of that, we developed, got what they call student faculty participation, parents groups, dad's club, student faculty parent committee organizing to implement these various programs. And by the 12th grade, there was a African assistant principal that came in, Mr. Coleman. Oliver Coleman, he came in. We had a few more African teachers come in. We had Black history, Black literature, and which was like laid the foundation for like Richard Wright, Ralph Ellison, some James Baldwin, history in terms of enslavement. The Jim Crow and just all those type of issues or topics that we did not have before that time, before our efforts to organize. And so later on, after leaving Detroit, going to Howard and graduating and coming back to law school in '73, I've run into many people coming back, Chokwe and many others, Daphne and Earl Ashford, Adam Shakur, Baba Charles Simmons, just a whole bunch of folks. But run into the sister who was the SNCC representative that came down and organized us in our closing of Mumford High School, and that sister was Sister Aneb.
I already knew.
House.
All right.
And so that was that. But then you also mentioned Sister Imani.
Yes.
Her husband, Richard Humphreys, was the president of the Dad's Club, or the whatever the title. I think it was called the Dad's Club or the Parents Club, that organized out of our efforts at Mumford. Wow. And of course their son, Peely Michael Samanga, He was a few years behind me, but he evolved into one of the renowned student leaders at the time. But Mr. Humphrey, in his own right, was just a hell of a brother, and they developed scholarships for students, and I was the beneficiary
Wow.
of one of the
Wow.
scholarships.
That's deep.
So, but I didn't know Imani then. I just knew
Him.
Richard Humphreys.
So
And so later, all these
Put
things
two
are
and two
coming
together.
together. Right.
all right, so this is, I love these stories because you're laying in things, and Mama Neb is definitely, I believe, one of the greatest people I've ever known as well. And,
Right.
you know, she's so graceful about it. She's like, well, Corey, no, you know, that's a bad Mama and Dad, but I love you, Mama and Dad. So, you know, I'm going to definitely chop this up and get this over to you, because she'll be like, well, the brothers and sisters were already so organized already. You know how she is. All I had to do was give something. But you talked about SNCC, and that was her journey here. So the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and when we think SNCC, we think another one of the great orators and organizers. When I look at like making sense of what's happening in America, Stokely Carmichael is like, you know,
Right.
Kwame Ture is like, bam, it's like I just go to his information when I look outside. Now, as I've grown older, I try to grab information from like a Chokwe and people I've met, because it's just a different art. But SNCC and organizing, what we're taking for granted often is during this time of the Black Power movement and the Civil Rights movement and just the freedom movement for Black people in that late 60s through the mid 70s, these are teenagers. Like, you all are young. Like, it's not like it's 20 and 30-year-olds. I mean, you all were really ready. How were your parents taking to you all organizing a walkout? What was the, you know, what was that whole flow, I wonder?
I can't express specific sit-down conversations with my parents, but what was most impactful for me is that there was a definite sense of service. I think one of the quotes, I might be off a little bit, that my father would always say is that, you know, if you're not serving people, then you're not, in essence, what is it? What you doing if you're not serving people?
That's interesting.
And that has always been a foundational thing with me. And my mother, although didn't express it that way, she always was a person to give to others, and so I never, whatever challenges I've had growing through life, on my path through life, I never received any critical admonition, if you will, from my parents, but rather be supportive. I mean, and that's not to say that when say, well, boy, you did this so dumb shit, what you doing? But it wasn't the type of thing to impede my growth, or what I thought at the time
Would have been that.
Now, sometimes my father would check me and say, "Boy, you know, I don't know when you be flexing at 16 and 15. He'd say, boy, you ain't lived long enough. You only 15, 16, whatever that age was, to know what you doing.
Yeah.
You ain't been here long enough. So you need to listen.
So with that, and I definitely feel that vibe. Howard University and Wayne State Law School. What was it about Howard that drew you there? And then from there to Wayne State Law School, what drew you there?
Well, I initially referenced my father's sister, Dolores Moore. Her and her husband, Walker Moore, lived in Louisville, and they had two sons, Walker Moore Jr. and Edison Gary. And they were 7 or 8 years older than me, but they went to Howard.
Ah, there you go. Your big cousins.
Yeah, they were at Howard. Mm-hmm. But I didn't, it didn't really register at the time, So then my brother, who's 3 years older than me, he graduates in 1966. And he goes to Howard, and there was another brother on the block, well, two other brothers on the block, Marvin Binion and Harold Collins, were at Howard. Mm-hmm. And so there was that attraction, and then my brother's there, and so that was, the initial attraction. And then my senior year in high school, Howard sponsored what was called a Towards a Black University Conference or something, and it was over the weekend, and somehow I managed to go.
Interesting.
And that just, and being there and seeing all these brothers and sisters and hearing people speak, and I was like, well, it ain't even no question. Although it probably was no question before that.
It really solidified.
Right, it really solidified, and so that's how I got to Howard. Mm-hmm. And it was a true blessing for me to have gone. It really formed provided the foundation and frame of reference for my understanding, or beginning to understand, an African frame of reference or viewpoint. In fact, brother at the time, Donnell Lee, what's his name? You know what I'm talking about, out of Chicago.
Oh, Chicago.
It just slipped my. But anyway, he has even now the publishing company.
Haki Mahabuti. Yep.
Haki Mahabuti.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He taught at Howard.
Okay.
During that time.
Okay.
Or had some classes. I didn't have him as an instructor, but Haki, they published these pamphlets, and one of the pamphlets that they published was an African frame of reference, and they talked about the importance of your worldview being centered from an African perspective.
Interesting.
And in terms of how you look at things, view yourself, look at world, current events, whatever, you have to have, as an African frame of reference. So that was very critical for me. C.L.R. James, my freshman year, I had a African history, Black Studies course with him.
Damn,
and
for real?
I did not know who C.L.R. James was.
That's like that's like getting taught basketball by Jordan or something.
Right. So he was one of my freshman professors, and really pushed us with critical thinking and writing. I can
only imagine the reading material for that course.
Yeah. So he was. So that that's been part of my
journey.
My journey, and many other folks, and not only being on Howard's campus, but being in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I was going to say, you go from Detroit, you go from one chocolate city, to another chocolate city too. And these black cities throughout the nation all have a different pulse. And you've
Right.
kind of worked in a
Right.
lot of them between
Yeah.
Atlanta, Jackson, DC, definitely here in Detroit. And then it's other like nooks and crannies, black cities and stuff. But, you know, Houston's becoming definitely that. Oakland, like all of them have a pulse. Baltimore, you've kind of walked the path in many of them.
Right.
What was so you're there in DC and then you come back to Detroit, Wayne State Law School, and it now, as I'm learning for another project, Wayne State Law School has had some giants in there with some when we think about legal minds, black legal minds. Why Wayne State?
Okay. Before I get to that,
Okay.
let me just share this with you in terms of history, and you just never know how events and the spirit is touching you. You know, it's stuff is impacting you. You don't even know it. But I have to raise up on my mother's side. I had cousins, Roland and Ronald Freeman. They and at the time they were in Detroit, but they left Detroit. Their mother and my mother were first cousins, not first cousins, but cousins, second cousins, maybe. But anyway, they left and went to California, and I did not know them at the time. In terms of, and they were older than me, you know, maybe 7 years older than me. But I raised them up because they were in L.A. And Roland and Ronald were part of the co-founding of the Black Panther Party in L.A. together with Bunchy Carter and John Huggins and others. And then you, of course, know the history of the government attack to destroy the Panthers and the movement. You know,
I
the
definitely
Republicans of Africa.
I got some questions on that.
And all of that. And so in '69, Fred Hampton is assassinated in, I think, September. But then right after that, in December, is when the government attacked the Panther headquarters in L.A. And there was a fierce firefight between the brothers and I think it was two sisters that were inside the headquarters, and the police and FBI. It was a firefight, and the brothers and sisters survived, and they end up coming out. But my cousin Roland was one of the soldiers inside of that and survived. And then Ronald, his and they were like brothers, he like 11 months apart.
Yeah.
You know, he also was part of the resistance and apparatus that the Black Panther organized in terms of the above ground and also covert activities, you know, and they were together with Brother Geronimo Pratt out there on the East Coast, and so it wasn't until later, after law school, that we kind of reconnected, and it is want to always lift their spirit up, because they were true soldiers for the people, you know, for our people, and they continued to organize until they transitioned
Well,
with the Panther Party.
Thank you for uplifting that. I did not know that. That adds so many other layers. As I see after law school, that's exactly where my questions will go. Like now with that law degree, and not just you, it's so many others, but
Right.
I'm speaking to you and your work in reference to it. But why Wayne State Law?
Well, actually, it was kind of a happenstance that I came back. I was all prepared to stay at Howard for law school, and I had only applied to Howard Law School, Wayne, because of being home, and Emory Law School in Atlanta. And my cousin that went to Howard, that I referenced earlier, from Louisville, was on the dental school staff, and so I went down to interview to Emory's Law School, and they took me around this, that, and the other. And when I come in after the little tour or whatever, and sit down with the dean or whoever he was, a European, he'd say, "Well, it's fine that we're glad that you came to check us out, but really there probably are some other schools that would be better suited for you."
That's that's
He
hilarious.
came out that bag. So
That's funny.
so I was so I recognized that for what it was, and I was all prepared to go to Howard Law School, and that summer they had all these various like pre admission programs over the summer, and there was one called Clio, where they come in and give you some pre-orientation to what law school is supposed to be about. But for whatever reason, I didn't get in, or the program that I was supposed to get in collapsed, so they didn't administer it. So that was what I was going to do as a precursor to going to Howard. So here I am here in D.C. now, and without a program, and so I'm like, well, I better find me a job, So I'm running around, trying to get a gig, and this was like in May, and I happened to be home on this Wednesday afternoon that I would never be home
Interesting.
at that time. Never would I be home. And this one Wednesday afternoon, I was home and got a call from the dean of the program at Wayne, Brother Ed Littlejohn, and said, "Man, we got this program, pre-law program, not pre-law, but this admission, this program, they call it minority or whatever program, and it's a great program. You need to come on back home to Detroit, this, that, and the other." And I was like, dang, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I called my parents, and this was a Wednesday. Registration was on a Friday.
Interesting.
And at the same time, one of my childhood friends, John Andrews, he was on Manor down the block, and we was like from kindergarten all the way through Mumford. I went to Howard. He went to Morgan, and he was an athlete. He was a football player. He had gotten drafted by the Lions, and he was in Detroit for that. He registered for me at Wayne on that Friday.
Wow.
Saturday, I packed everything I had into my car and came on back home and started the program on Monday.
Wow.
And that's how I got back.
So, all right. So I hear a lot about that group in that class. Like I hear that connected to that class is you, Chokwe Lumumba, Attorney Reed, like a lot of other people like connecting in that class. And I may be wrong on some of this stuff, but who were the people in that class and the synergy connected to the people of that group?
It's important. When we started in '73, there was a cadre of brothers and sisters that had started in '72. Carl Edwards, Ivy Thomas Riley, Robert. It might have been one or two others, but Carl and Ivy were the prominent ones, and particularly Carl. So that when we started in '73, Carl was like giving us the lay of the land in terms of the racism and the problems of the law school's institutional exclusion of Africans in the law school. So you would be admitted, but then you would be excluded after the first year in
Wow.
terms of the academic impact of the structural racism in teaching,
Yeah.
and either placed on probation or excluded. And so we were prepared for that when we came in. It was several. It was like in our class it was like Daphne Curtis, now Daphne Curtis, Earl Ashford, Gad Holland, Chokwe, myself, James Cannon. Adam came the next year. Charles Simmons, they came the next year. Then there were folks in night school, Rosalind Reed, a few others, and so we developed a core of black students, African students, and we were called the Black Legal Alliance,
That's hilarious.
and so we organized ourselves in terms of study groups, in terms of supporting one another, in terms of pushing policies within the law school that addressed our needs, trying to hold the teachers accountable, professors accountable. There were two African instructors, Dean Littlejohn and Ed Callahan, were the only two there at that time, and so coming in, I had the benefit at Howard. They had started a pre-law curriculum, and so my last year and a half at Howard, I had pre-law classes. So, and the instructor was a sister by the name of Sharon Banks. She was a lawyer, and so she was. I mean, our course was many law school type courses in terms of the methodology, in terms of analyzing factual scenarios, applying the law and that sort of, and writing, which was critical. So I figured I had, gotten an excellent, outstanding foundation. And so in this program, the summer program, you had to maintain a particular average and to continue on in September. So we take the finals in the summer program, and my damn scores was like low, and I'm like, damn, what happened? I figure I got a leg, and we helping each other, I'm
You
like,
figured you had a leg up on everybody.
I
you
know this. I'm
yeah.
writing this, that, and the other.
Yep.
And as a result of that, the had to engage in a little psychological challenges with the professors, looking at your stuff, and talking about when you're going to be on probation. I'm like, man, y'all ain't turning me around, So continued on that first year, and everything ended up being cool. But for many others, they were placed on probation, and some were terminated. And so that summer of '74, we protested and organized outside the school, and Chokwe was part of that organizing. And when this was after he initially was there in '69 to '70 when they shut the school down, they locked the doors down in '60, and then he left to organize the defense for the RNA 11 when the government attacked the brothers and sisters down in Jackson.
Yeah.
So after that, he came back, and they made him start all over. And so we didn't, quote, shut the school down over the summer, but we maintained organized protests and picketing of the law school to the extent that we were able to get some of our people back in and continue to organize the Black Legal Alliance.
I love that story. Man, is so organized. And you talk about Chokwe, and while going to law school, shout out, here go another name I'm going to uplift, and one of my big homies of Judge Claudia Morcom that was down there during that time. And she never really gave the true essence of that relationship. But I remember, you remember the time where I brought Chokwe here for the Juneteenth event. And one of the first people that called me was like, anytime you do anything with Chokwe Lumumba, you call me first. That was Judge Claudia Morcom. Rest in peace.
And let me say this, you called her out. We, the National Conference of Black Lawyers, we had an event honoring black legal warriors.
Yeah.
And it was to honor Judge Claudia Morcom, Brother Milton Henry, and Brother Mizell Soul.
Okay.
Who was the head of the Defenders Services here. And so we honored those three in a big banquet dinner.
I did not know about that, but man, now I want to get the program for that, because you got a lot of my big homies, as I often share. Like this was my grandmother's house, and then this is kind of go right into the Milton Henry story. My grandmother, so you knew him more so probably as Gaedi Obadeli when he was with his brother in the Republic of New Africa. I know him as Reverend Milton Henry, because as he started Christ Presbyterian Church, even before it was Christ Presbyterian Church, he was preaching up and down Jefferson at the senior homes.
Right.
My grandmother would be playing the piano, as I often tell people, and he would give us like these big bags of, I thought they were disgusting. You remember them cinnamon candies? Butterscotch. So we would hand out, me and my big sister, we would hand out candy for the people as he would deliver a sermon. My grandmother would play a song, they would sing, and this is like, I saw a church like come to life before my eyes the more I think about it. So it started there, and then from there, it was like really early in the morning. It was a Catholic church right off Jefferson. And then from there, they ended up getting the church out in Southfield. Mm-hmm. But we saw that whole maturation, and I never really knew who Milton Henry was until he passed away, and I saw this big spread in the Michigan Citizen, and I was like, damn, I had no idea that this is that same guy, because this is like my grandmama friend. You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine the person that come over and eat fruit with your grandma being a revolutionary. You know what I'm saying?
Well, so all that being said about Brother Milton, as a young lawyer coming on the set, Milton, and I don't know where it came from, but I assumed that he had observed me in court, and I don't know at the time. He may have known that, my association with Chokwe, I don't know. But one of the things he would say, he would see me, he said, "Hey, young lion, young lion." And boy, that just would just lift me up, and then I had the opportunity to be on a couple of cases with him, tried a couple of cases with him, and then later on organizing the litigation against the law school at University of Michigan's law school, challenging their admissions program.
Wow, I never even knew that case existed.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So, and then having a chance to visit him and rap with him at his home, he was just a true inspiration. And I did not know, and I don't know if you know, but Message to the Grassroots.
Yes.
And The Ballot or the Bullet. Speeches by Malcolm given here at
King Solomon Church.
Milton
recorded.
recorded it.
I'll give you another one. The only tape, I Have a Dream speech that that Motown Records released, he recorded that too.
Yeah, yeah.
For Martin Luther King, you
Right,
know. And
right.
you can see him in the cover. I got the album cover. You can see him in all
Back-
his video and audio equipment. In the in the Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream, you'll see him with his big frames,
right.
standing tall, and afro goatee, and it's like that's Luminary right there, recording that.
Yeah, yeah. So he was a hell of a, on a lot of different levels,
Yeah.
personal inspirations, and was unrelenting advocate. I mean, fearless advocate. It's you hear about these stories, but to have been blessed with having experienced or being in the presence of them. That's like with Brother Chokwe. I mean, seeing some stuff, in terms of just,
Yeah,
being part of it.
I often tell most of my friends when they ask me about Chokwe, I'm like, okay, the story of Tupac shooting a police officer in Atlanta. What you don't know is the reason why he did not face jail time, and he faced jail time for some of the more,
Right.
whatever. But that's a Chokwe Lumumba understanding of law and legal systems and the relationship between the family of Mutulu Shakur and Tupac Shakur. So let's talk a little bit about you, and you said a couple cases. With now you ready to do law. Where are you practicing law in the beginning? Do you spark out on your own? Where's your journey?
In fact, I mentioned Brother Mizell Soul, but during the law school time when we were challenging the practices at the law school and through the Black Legal Alliance, the leadership of that was me, Chokwe, Daphne, Earl Ashford, who later became one of the partners opening of the firm of Ashford, Cannon, Lumumba. But during our struggles with the law school, it also evolved in a struggle against the university. And we interfaced with the Wayne State University Board of Governors. And one of the Board of Governors was Mizell Soul. And Mizell Soul, at the time, was the director or the chief deputy of the Defender's Office. And so when we graduated, or about to graduate, Mizell said, well, Jeff, you, Chokwe, and Daphne, y'all need to come on down here to the Defender's Office.
That's hilarious.
And he brought us into the Defender's Office.
He applied the if you can't beat them, join them.
Right. So we were we started. We were there when we took the bar, and then when we passed the bar, the three of us started working there, Chokwe was there for about a year and a half. Daphne maybe a little longer, and then I was there for 4 years. And during all this time, we we envisioned this multi-lawyer, diverse practice of African black lawyers, and so Chokwe left out first and started it with James Cannon, Earl Ashford, and Chokwe. So it was Ashford, Cannon, and Lumumba. And then right after that, Adam was in practice. So
and you're speaking
around
rest in peace, Adam Shakur.
Adam Shakur, right. Our office was out on 6 Mile, 11,000 West McNichols, right on 6 Mile and Myers in that building. So then Adam came out, and it was Asher, Cannon, Lumumba, and Shakur. And then in '80, I came out and added my name to the
Yeah,
string.
that's a long
And
law
then,
firm.
and then right after I joined, within a year or so, is when Adam was tapped to be a judge on the 36th District Court. So he left to be a judge. And then after that, Earl, I believe he became a administrative law judge or something, and James but then after that we another brother, Ernest Jarrett, a sister named Naomi Edison, they came and went, and then it was the three of us. No, it was me and Chokwe, and then a young brother named Harry Davis came in. Then it was uh, Edison Davis and Lumumba. And then there's other people who came through that time. A brother who associated with us, Rufus Griffin, Norma Dotson. They both became judges. At one point, Cynthia Stevens touched
Judge
base
Stevens.
for a
Okay.
second. James McGinnis, uh, a few others. But over time, a lot of folks came through. There's a brother that came through for a minute, Sam Perkins, who was originally from Memphis, Tennessee. He returned to Memphis and became the one of the baddest criminal defense lawyers and lawyer in Memphis, Tennessee.
Ain't that something?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
saw Memphis.
So,
It's a lot of
and
business.
it was one of the ones that had been victimized by the law school institutional racism, like you ain't gonna be nothing. And he came out and been one of the baddest
Ain't that something?
lawyers on the set,
Wow.
and then that law school, like Carl Edwards, Alice Jennings. I mean, just phenomenal legal warriors,
Yeah.
in the civil arena.
Ken Cockrell, John
Right.
Conyers. It's a lot.
Right.
So in this journey, I know as I've reached out, like we always say, it's like a lot of attorneys and you need an attorney. Then as somebody else that definitely I look up to, hell of a brother in this, but Attorney Todd Russell Perkins always said the law is a strange bird, which is such a classic Attorney Todd Russell Perkins answer, but it's so true. Like what's happening, how to set the pace in the courtroom. And I've just heard stories about you in the rhythm of pace in the courtroom, understanding the interpretation of laws, the precedents, also the relationships that may exist between judges and prosecutors and things like that. Criminal law, it's for those that have never been in a criminal courtroom.
Right.
Civil can be interesting too, but criminal definitely. Like it's almost like a whole different culture.
Yeah.
And how did you acclimate yourself to that and now excel in something like that? Because as everybody says, it ain't TV. That's the first.
Right.
It ain't
Right.
TV.
Right. Right. Well, a lot has to do with my growth and socialization being a product of the late 60s and early 70s in terms of all the social upheaval, the oppressive nature and repression of the government on the movement, and my beginning to understand that. At Howard, I was kind of ambivalent in terms of what I wanted to do. I thought that I would perhaps pursue political science in terms of research and writing and being a professor or something like that. But then, as the Attica brothers, the advent of the Attica brothers, the all the different COINTELPRO type things that were going on, I began to, for me, realize, and my motivation was that recognizing that the law was one of the mechanisms to maintain oppression against our people. And I kind of resolved within myself that perhaps I could best serve our people by trying to be a buffer between that oppression and my people. And the only type of lawyer, I didn't know any lawyers personally at the time, but the ideal of a criminal defense lawyer, and you had like the Angela Davis's case and things like that. So those are the type of things that were beginning to ferment in my mind, and so that was the only type of lawyer that I really had any kind of aspiration of being.
Okay.
And so and as I grew into that, understanding that the law really has never been right for us,
No.
you know, and so we had to be able to come between that the impact of that injustice and try to minimize it, and certainly now to abolish it, the criminal system, you know. But until it is actually abolished, we have to be able to understand the dynamics and the relationships of it so that we can have victories along the way. And those victories may manifest in a lot of different ways. Sometimes people say, well, you know, that's just one person or whatever. Well, yes, it is, but at the same time, it's a cumulative effect. And that one person's freedom is just as important as if there's a, you know, well, to that individual, it's the most serious thing that
Well,
one has.
Well, I'm going to say this just from your story today, and I appreciate you spending so much time. Now we in overtime, but I like it if you're here. I got not so many more. I might have to bring you back, but a couple more I want to finish in this interview. But you spoke, first off, you saw victory early. That Mumford Revolutionary Act at a it's like, okay, if we're walking out and we're setting up this strategy of demands through the guidelines and premise, shout out Mama and Neb and Snick, of this being organized, and you saw this with community collectively, and then in 1 year you see change. Now I'm sure, you know, if we play macro and look at other reasons and say, well, white flight was taking place, that may have happened there, and who knows what it did, but it internalized in you that this can happen at a young age. So you had a precedent for knowing, using the legal term precedent, for knowing that this is possible. And you've seen it, and you're seeing it still all around you, and you've seen some victory. So now, after seeing victory and then approaching it again, you don't look at it as much as I think sometimes people of other generations, even closer to mine, that may have a more apathetic or defeatist attitude towards some of these structures and these systems and the ways of getting justice and balance. And that brings me to the next question. You and Chokwe have represented, like, some real life freedom fighters, like, and for the black struggle, people that have, when you think of, like, right now, I don't know how many people are watching this today, there are still Black Panthers that have been arrested wrongfully, that are still arrested today I'm talking about from like 1972, 1973, that are such wrongful convictions, that are in jail, incarcerated, like natural life sentences, where their families are still being followed by government agencies and things like that. Tupac Shakur, rest in peace, it was one of those people that was always targeted from these organizations of our government. You're one of those people that took on these risks of defending these freedom fighters. I'm sure that the risk of defending these freedom fighters also still kind of comes at a risk of possibly harming you. How do you go about this and also know that this is a case that I'm doing for the people, and I'm going to walk this path for my people? Kind of going back to the stories that you uplifted of your cousins.
Well, you know, let me put the context of how that evolved. I kind of, for me, yes, we have those political activists and persons who are specifically targeted because of their political advocation and organizing. And then you also have those just by virtue of being an African in America that are suffering the oppression
Of this system.
of this system. For the practice, our practice, over there on 6 Mile, in the early 80s, beginning with the Nyack cases out of Nyack, New York, when the Black Liberation Army was indicted for liberating monies from the armored cars, and where a couple of police or guards were killed or died. That was kind of like the beginning of the really political type exposure of trying cases. But it was not my personal
Ambition person.
well, no, it was my personal in court representation of folks. Our practice basically was me and Chokwe, and Harry. He didn't do much criminal. He didn't do criminal work. So Chokwe, being who he was the of course in that level of the movement, folks knew
Chokwe.
that they called Chokwe, right? That took Chokwe away from the day-to-day
Practice.
operation of maintaining a practice. And one of the challenges of the movement was not really being able to financially support that long-term and dedicated effort that there are no words to really describe his commitment.
Matulu, Asada.
One of the things he said that he would always say is that you must have an unconditional love for your people or you will betray them. And he truly was a manifestation of an unconditional love for the people because he sacrificed so much. But in terms of the practice, as he was out there, beginning with the BLA cases, where he represented Sunni Bilal, Bilal Sunni Ali, and the same case that Sekou Odinga was part of, and Sundiata Akoli. I think they was all on that. But at any rate, as Chokwe was going back and forth to New York, the office had to be minted. So I was like holding it down here to do that. So I didn't have that personal presence
in all those cases.
But
your presence was...
My thing was to hold it down to at least allow, for the most part, for him to go do what he did, you know. And and that's how it should have been.
Yeah.
You know, because the ultimate thing was to get that done.
And it's interesting that you share in that, because now you're giving more context to the understanding, because you still need to balance where that's at. And then as a brother in business and in work, as you say, you got to love the people, because some partnerships may look at it like, well, hey, I'm over here doing all of this. You over there, you need to get back here.
Right.
Whereas all partners understood that this is for the greater good of the people.
Right. Right.
And also when it comes to greater good of the people, I just know personally that you worked with a lot of other African institutions given as a legal mind, whether that be the Aisha Shule. I'm sure you definitely, I mean, with students there, Nataki Taliba,
Right.
Other organizers of Malcolm X Grassroots Association. Like, you served in many other facets of organizing as that legal mind. Even being here present today, when I hit you up, you was like, "Yeah, I got you, brother Kari." Extending yourself and being present in community.
Yeah, man. It's I want to respond to that, but also like one of the brothers and Neb, she connected me with Ahmed Abdul Rahman, who was a political prisoner from here with the Panther Party.
Yeah.
Who was
Was a
victimized by
professor.
COINTELPRO,
Yeah.
you know, and so met him during his effort to be released and commutation and hearings and stuff like that, and who was another phenomenal brother, freedom fighter, who in fact I was when my cousin Ronald, now, fast forwarding to now, was having some health challenges, was making his national tours to the chapters and things like that. When he came through here, hooked him up with Ahmed, and just to
Connect.
watch them talk about back in their Panther
Days.
and which was very very rewarding, But in terms of the community thing, one of the there's a having been able to better understand Africa and African principles and personality. One of the concepts that permeates across most part of Africa, it may manifest in different terms or whatever, is a concept of Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. We are because I am. Talking about that communal collective. And so and even before I heard that or understood the concept, I think it was just in the spirit that there is a essential part of communalism that is strictly and well, I don't know about strictly, but truly African. And going back to Howard, my very first exposure to it was in one of my classes. There was a pamphlet or book that President Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia wrote, and it's called Humanism in Africa. And it talks about that whole communal collective dynamic where the emphasis is on the community, the collective, and not the individual. And so that just initially set up that contradiction of Western philosophy and African philosophy, whereas the Western piece is all individualism,
Rugged individualism,
and
too.
pulling yourself up, and in African humanism, you are appreciated for your presence, just being who you are, and the importance of your contribution, no matter what it is, to the collective, and so we, as we evolve as community and as we pursue liberation, that has to be an essential part, one of the essential parts of our movement and who we are, because we never can lose the humanity that is within us for the sake of talking about, your individual need,
Yeah.
and so we just have to get there. We have to do it, and I have to see myself in you, and often say, I'm just a reflection of you.
Well, I can definitely say this. You've helped some of my some people I've known directly that we knew, but even people that I haven't known that speak highly of legal situations, criminal situations that you've helped them out of. So I definitely tip my hat to that big time, where you've helped some families. Some were talking to me about you, like, wow, if it wasn't for Attorney Edison, boy, I would be cool, because the law can be like that. And now just pivoting, definitely, we're at the end. You spoke to Africa. When it comes to a person living in Africa, you've done it. You have you've traveled many a times to the point where you actually have property there that you share and connect with community. You're gonna be headed back to Africa pretty soon. What's the connection that you get from your travels to Africa, and what's been the value for you, and what would you suggest for others looking to connect and travel?
I think what is ultimately so important is that we talk about liberation and freedom of African people and what that really means, and I think it begins with I think it was Marcus Garvey that said Africa for Africans, both at home and abroad, in terms of diaspora. I think what happens to us across this planet, because Africans are everywhere, have migrated everywhere and have created their own footprint everywhere, no matter where it has been, But the ultimate liberation of African people is connected with the liberation of the African continent. And in terms of recognizing the importance of the individual African abroad to the collective on the continent, and it's a long we're a long way off. I mean, the impact of the European on our psyche and our material development is tremendous, and so we really, I think it is. Dr. John Henry Clark says there's no European solutions for African problems or challenges, and so we just got to get to that point of understanding that our freedom comes from within us. And,
I like that.
And we have to purge that European
idealism of what success is and things
all of
like that.
Right.
So that's why I asked you, what did you get that first trip to Africa? What was that intrinsic value you pulled out, and what's the intrinsic value you still pull out today?
It's for me, just the, just when you touch ground, that it's different. You know that there is it's such a spiritual experience at that time, and then and just trying to tap into it and understanding or let that spirit flow. There are challenges though, it's not.
Well, let's put it
over
like this.
here.
Western, now I guess as Yusuf says, the hegemony of the Western civilization is a global thing. It's not it's not just fragmented to Detroit to living in this region. It's international. So
Right.
I just want to.
Right. And so it's plenty of challenges. I mean, just as we on this side
Have our challenges.
dealing with the vestiges of enslavement and all the manifestations of that, The indigenous African is dealing with the vestige of colonialism.
And
And the whole thing of European supremacy is to keep us
yeah,
all disconnected, and confused about the essence of our Africanness, and the connectedness between us. And so we, as we evolve and engage each other, we really have to better understand that we are one. And in light of cultural differences or whatever, we still have that African essence, that is deep inside of our spirit and soul that allows us to survive as long as we have, and to be able to perpetuate ourselves in a way that will be that will nurture the ultimate liberation, and it's coming. I mean, you have all kinds of you had the generation of the first generation of African leadership after independence
yeah,
that Nkrumah, Lumumba, and several other brothers and sisters that just were taken out,
yeah.
and those and many of the ones that remained were just maintained that alliance to the colonial relationships with Europe,
Yeah.
and and ended up really exploiting other Africans, and so now we're like the second and moving into the second and third, or the third generation removed from that, and you have brothers and sisters who ain't taking that no more.
I mean, yeah, the president of South Africa, some of his speeches, it's like, wow, this
Right.
brother is
Right.
this brother is boy taking it. It's like, no, this farmland, hey, it's coming back. And looking at a lot of the way the brothers organized in Niger this summer,
Oh yeah.
and what
Gay
those
place.
acts were, I think like some geopolitical discussions, and it's good because
It's
Baba
coming.
Simmons, we had a talk soon, and it's gonna be another show for Detroit is Different. But
Right.
just know it's coming. But it's some organizing, which kind of leads to, I know this is like a flip side because I'm talking about you connecting to Africa. Now I want to talk to you. I mean, it's like I got you here. When it comes to like the state of America, and this will be the second to last question. So after this is my very last question. In America, legal situations, criminal, you black, whatever it may be. You got a gun, you don't got a gun. You were speeding, you weren't speeding. Got a DUI, don't got a DUI. What's your take on like us engaging with, I guess, let's forget the what that criminal matter may be. But for that person watching right now, when you get on the phone with that attorney and you need representation, what should you be asking as a black person in America to know for this criminal matter to be handled best? What advice would you give?
Well, I think that there really needs to be an understanding of what the system represents to each individual, in terms of the whole process. I mean, we have been ingrained with these concepts of with these concepts of justice and fairness, and it really is not that. So you really got to understand what the system represents, or the process of what take place from the point of your interacting, say, with the police until the end.
Yeah.
And I say it's important because, for me, and oftentimes how I explain it, is that the whole process in the criminal context, and probably just the legal system, period, is based on an accumulation and combination of illusions. And what I mean by that, Kyrie, is that the only thing that is real in the process occurs at the moment of your interaction with the police or your interaction doing an assault or whatever. The only thing that is real in terms of the process is when that occurs, the moment that it occurred. Everything else from that point to the end of the process is a process of illusions, because the process is an effort to recreate that moment of conflict or contradiction that initiates the process. And the illusion begins when you interact with the investigators who are interrogating you or questioning you, interviewing you, and it calls upon the persons to recall their observations, tap into their memories, to be their ability to express and articulate what it is that occurred and happened to them or what they saw, to an investigator, to an interviewer, who then imposes their perception of what is being said to them, and then they translate it down to document it in paper. And that documentation may or may not be consistent with what is being said. Then, if you find yourself, or when at the point in the courtroom, it is again an opportunity for that person to express themselves and to recall, and their recollection may be impaired or impacted, and it's influenced by the lawyer's ability to interrogate and to question and cross-examine them, to test their reliability, to test the truthfulness of what it is being said. And then ultimately, in terms of a fact-finding, if it's a jury, that jurors, individual, 12, their perception and what they bring to the process and the lens that they are receiving this information, and each of those 12 individuals may be hearing something different, although it's being said the same way, but they internalize it differently, bringing their experiences to assessment and evaluating, and then they have to make a decision ultimately that may very well be consistent with the reality of when the whole process is initiated, but one time too often it is not, and results in an injustice, if you will. And we haven't even gotten to, and that's just a fact finding. We haven't dealt with the responsibility of judges who make legal decisions based on their perception of what the law is supposed to be. And so that really is a power dynamic, because the law is only what a particular group of individuals who have the ability to make a decision at any given point in time based on their own historical experiences and perception of the implementation of power, exercise of power. So it's like, how do you have fundamental rights today, and then 1 year, 5 years down the road, you don't have those same fundamental rights?
But see, this is why you're great at what you do, obviously. But you just spoke words into a couple different things that have been mulling around in my mind in reference to the justice system as well. Like the first one you kind of touched on, or I pulled that from what you said. There's so many laws on the books. Enforcement of these laws is already kind of a you're guilty before you know what I'm saying? I remember like my whole life, I never saw anybody be charged with perjury until I saw Chris Webber and Mayor Kilpatrick get it. I'm sure you've seen more, but like I you know, up to that point, I was like, this is weird. Like, I've never seen this perjury thing happen.
They be lying every day.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They lying every day.
So it's like, if you have all these laws, but nothing is enforced, then how to enforce them? Even when a cop is cool with me, like when a cop pulls me over and is like, "Hey, you were a couple miles over, but I'm gonna let you go." Technically, the police officer, though I'm glad he did this, is being selective with enforcing what the officer is supposed to do. You know, or when the officer does this, which is even worse, it's like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and this is wrong. I'm gonna just get you on these two things. They're not supposed to do that. That's one thing. The other thing that you spoke to is, you know, and I've seen this, it happens on TV often, but it also happens in the courtrooms when I've seen them, like where an attorney will say something and then it'll be like, well, strike that from the record. I object. In the back of my mind, it's like, if I'm on the jury, I know you told me to strike that from the record.
Yeah, but it's out.
But I'm a human being. How am I going to strike whatever was said?
Right.
And I know that's a tactic. I know if Corey Frazier's ever in law, I'm definitely going to apply that. But just know, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure that is, you know, it's almost like the law presents information as if it's robotic. And then my biggest argument I always have, our laws are supposed to be based on precedents. The whole premise of this nation is an illegal enterprise.
Right.
Stolen land, stolen labor, stolen loan.
From day one.
And then to move forward and say, now all of a sudden, hey, all that stuff we did to get in business, we going to say that's illegal now for you. But even how that's enforced, I mean, like, my lifetime, I think I've seen some of the biggest atrocities, like the BP oil spill. I'm like, this isn't even an American company. Just tell them to shut down, you know, tell them to cut off the water line. It's like, no, we can't cut off the water line because that oil pipeline even gushing and killing all the fish and everything in the bayou is worth it because it's worth it to BP. And I'm like, this ain't even an American company. We can't shut them down. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. So stuff like that and the big bailout and all of this stuff. Like, I've seen some legal things that have definitely made me say, I always knew this justice system was interesting, but boy, oh boy. And knowing what you just gave is real powerful. And you stand and keeping your sanity in a space like that. And also being right now, you great grand too. Granddad, great grand, dad, human being, healthy. Like, how do you keep your balance? Husband, like, how do you keep your balance in the mix of all of that work, moving with our people, and still just being you?
I don't, you know, I've just truly been blessed, man. I attribute it to having the parents that I have, the neighborhood I grew up in, 8 Mile, all the relationships along the way. I've had, and we have, you know, I've been and sometimes I think about this, been in the presence of so many dynamic, powerful individuals that have, you know, just, I mean, all kind. I mean, we ain't even talked about, you know, but just so many different, you know, and both here in the U.S. and in Africa, you know, just when I say in the presence, I mean like this close and closer, you know, that we are, you know, and I you know, my, you know, just trying to be humble, man, you know, and try to be true to everyone's humanity and try not to be judgmental. I mean, you know, we have to judge. I mean, in making decisions and exercising choice, you're exercising judgment. But I mean, judgment in a sense of imposing some negative energy on others, you know, just, you know, and I just attribute it to just all the people who I've been blessed to have interacted with in life, and just try to strive to be the best possible person that I can be, in spite of my shortcomings, and just try to be real, man. We all accountable. So if like I tell my client, check me. If I ain't, if you see I ain't doing, check me. Say something.
Well,
Like
I think
that's cool. Yeah.
I would doubt that other than from here go I'm gonna shout out another one of your homies. Gerald Evelyn, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get you. You got to get in the studio too, man. I
Yeah,
need you in
yeah,
here.
yeah.
The other one of your big homies, and then also definitely friend in arms. One of my OGs too, Mama Shoshana. I know I owe you
Oh,
another call. And Mama Atari. Like
Yeah.
that whole Chokwe family. I mean, a lot of love,
right.
lot of love there.
They're Mumfordites.
Yes, they are Mustangs.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. Yeah, because I've seen some of the pictures with the big afros and stuff. Just getting that fight going. Yeah, definitely. So this was wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm definitely gonna have to bring you back. I usually have 3 questions about your very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it, and all of that. But I'm gonna just go to the last one. If you could rename Woodward after one Detroiter, who would it be and why?
That's a good question. Yeah, there's several. That's a good question, Kyrie.
I mean, you were a man with a law firm. It may just be a long name. It may be like a comma.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty good. I, wow. There's so many historical figures. You have those in politics. You have those in the movement that are worthy of, of being named. And and so so I can't even
I can't give one.
I can't give one.
All right, well, just know that it's a question mark.
All right.
But it's a lot of folks in that mix.
Right.
We named a lot of people. We named a lot of people
Right.
already in here, so it's a lot of gems. Thank you so much, Baba Jeff.
Thank you, Kyrie, for being ever present in documenting our history and documenting our culture, and because without that we have nothing, man.
Yep.
And so, what you're doing now is going to impact generations to come.
Thank you.
And I respect that, man. As a historian, of sorts, appreciate that, and try to document things that I experienced through photography, and it's so crucial, so important, man, and saving stuff, man. I got stuff. I think I looked at something just the other day, going through some things of a little paper that I did when I was 13, and yeah, I mean,
I would love to
like
get
that.
I would love to
And,
get you and actually somebody Michael Sharp too. I love
Yeah.
to get you guys to come in and
Oh,
with
he's-
some of your photos and do something creative with that. That would be fun.
That Sharp boy,
Yeah.
Woo. He does hell. And I just talked to him yesterday. Gerald Evelyn's birthday was yesterday.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And talked to Michael yesterday. And
Okay. And like I say, it's definitely greater to know you all from a capacity of not necessarily needing counsel.
right. Well, anytime, don't hesitate.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
This was counseling here, man. This was good for me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to sit with you, man.
Oh, this was fun, man. This was fun. And I'm definitely going to bring you back because I think we we didn't even get to. I want to talk about some of the African-centered schooling. I want to talk a little bit more about family stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because navigating it, and I like that in these Detroit is different stories. Like, you know, all of this is running concurrent movement. Doesn't turn off the fact that, you know, you still got wife and kid at home. You got parents to take care of and caretaking. Like,
all of that.
Still learning. Yeah. It's still life. Like you can't press pause on life. You know what I'm saying? It's
the clock is ticking. Yeah, man. I just, you can't stop, man. I just lost one of my dearest friends this morning that I met in Howard, you know, that were roommates and stuff, man.
Prayers up.
Yeah. So thank you, Say, man. You got this is crucial stuff, man. Crucial stuff, man.
Peace be.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.